Well, some new legal questions today after a national atheist group files a lawsuit against the state of Pennsylvania for declaring 2012 the year of the Bible. The group is called Freedom from Religion Foundation. It claims that the resolution amounts to state-sponsored religion and is therefore unconstitutional. But that's not all. The group adds that the Bible contains, quote, violent, sexist, and racist models of behavior that the members of this group find personally repugnant. Now, the sponsor of the resolution, a local lawmaker, disagrees, saying, quote, it recognizes the significant impact the Bible has had on our country. It in no way inhibits anyone from believing in any faith or no faith. Who's right here? What's the case like? Lisa Wheel is a Fox News legal analyst and former federal prosecutor. Fred Tisi is a former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney. Welcome to you both. So, Lisa, this group says the state is endorsing a religion. It violates the Constitution. Is that true?
Jenna, I think they've got a case. I mean, as wonderful as the resolution sounds, benign, uplifting, all of that, it does have the mark of legislating religion. And, you know, that arguably runs afoul of the definition of separation between church and state, the whole Establishment Clause. I mean, look at how courts have interpreted. You can't even have the 10 Commandments in a courtroom, Jenna. So how is this going to fly? I think they've got a case. I don't like the way that they're pursuing it, but I do think they have a case.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the pursuit, Fred, because it's not just about the separation of church and state.
Right.
They simply do not like the content of the Bible as well. They say that the content could encourage people to rely on the content of the Bible and therefore act in a manner harmful to them and to others. Does that change their argument or the validity of it?
Well, it doesn't change their argument. I think their argument is basically a legal sophistry. I mean, I think their real problem is with the Bible, which they have said, in their words, it contains violent, sexist, and racist overtones and is not a model for citizens of the United States. But I think their argument, I think, is really undermined by two things. First of all, you know, under the U.S. Constitution, which is the standard by which this gets looked at, in 1983, Ronald Reagan and two houses of Congress passed virtually the exact same type of resolution. This is a resolution. It's not a law. And secondly, and more importantly, if you look at the Pennsylvania Constitution actually refers to the Almighty and gives thanks for civil and religious freedoms. This doesn't endorse any particular religion. Well, you know, the Bible plays a big part. Lisa and I both put our hands on the Bible and swore to uphold the law when we became federal prosecutors.
That's interesting, Lisa. What about that?
That's absolutely true. But here, Jenna, the problem is that if you don't want to put your hand on the Bible, if you don't endorse the Bible, then you are excluded, and you're excluded by a legislative branch. And that's the problem. Again, I do not like the way that they're going about it. I don't agree with what they're saying about the Bible one iota. But legally, they do have a case because other entities are excluded.
So
why don't we have a year of the Koran?
Well, hold on a second. So let me get back to one point that you made, Fred, about Ronald Reagan, because you brought this up. This proclamation, it was made in 1983. President Reagan came out and said in 1983 he's declaring it the year of the Bible. That was challenged, Lisa, by the ACLU, but it was upheld by a federal district judge. So what's the difference there?
It was, but the law has changed since 1983, yet even of that being upheld, I don't think it would be upheld anymore, Jenna. At this point, when you do have the 10 Commandments, when you do have the separation in the churches, when we do have this in the schools, we have the Hanukkah, in the Christmas issues, every single Christmas and Hanukkah time, and the law has evolved since 1983, so I don't think this is a good example of where you want to put this out there anymore.
How do you actually honor the history, Fred? Because we do know the founders did want a separation of church and state, but we also know that they were spiritual people too. Right. So how do you honor that history?
They were, and I don't think this crosses the line. It doesn't endorse any particular religion. That's the point. Last time I looked, the Bible has both the Old Testament and the New Testament, which runs across just Christianity. So I'm not sure it endorses any particular religion, and it's a proclamation. No one's excluded from anything.
The problem is it doesn't endorse the Koran. It doesn't endorse atheists. It doesn't endorse. It really is not all inclusive. If you really want to have a year of the Bible, you've got to have a year of all these other things.
Let's use the example of the Quran, though, Fred. The Quran did not have a part in U.S. history. I mean, that's just a matter of history.
Well, it doesn't, but let me ask you a question. I mean, I got to tell you, if they passed a proclamation, and this is all this is, it's a proclamation or a resolution that said we recognize or we recognize or not endorse, but
But you just said it. You just said it. Endorse.
Yeah, you can't say endorse.
That's the point. That's the point they're going to make. Endorse.
Rewind that tape.
Don't use the word endorse if you want to win.
You can't.
Quick final thought, Fred.
What's that? I'm sorry?
Quick final thought from you. If you don't want to use the word endorse, I'm going to give you a do-over.
But no, you can recognize. I mean, you can recognize the Jewish faith during Passover. You can recognize the Islamic faith during Ramadan. I mean, you can recognize any of them, and you can't endorse it. That's the point.
But the problem by making that proclamation and calling it the year of the Bible, hey, that's an endorsement.
It's an interesting point that you bring up, Lisa. We'll have to talk about that at a later time, whether or not what Reagan did in 1983 would be upheld now.
Exactly.
It's not that long ago, so it'll be interesting to take a closer look at that. Fred and Lisa, thank you as always. Nice to have you.
Thanks, guys, for having me. Thanks.